Hi, I'm Mark Whitebrow and this is the Electronic Cafe, the channel for the lovers of electronic music.
And I'm Andy McNabb, so let's get started. So welcome to this latest edition of the Electronic Cafe. Before I kick into what's going to be coming onto this particular episode, I just want to say if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do so. If you have friends that love music like you do, like Mark and I do, please subscribe. You can also now find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so you can be connected to Electronic Cafe on most social platforms as well. As I say, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. In this episode, we are going to look at one of the most incredible, legendary electronic pioneering bands of all time, the incredible Human League. We're going to look at their first two albums and the story behind that before they became hugely commercial. It's a bit, for me, similar to the Ultravox Mark 1, Ultravox Mark 2. I understand why people love the Mark 2 version, but for me, the Mark 1 version was just so pioneering. So cool, love it. So delighted to be talking to you about that in a bit more detail. And finally, we get to do a hot stuff, which we haven't done for a while. I'm itching to tell you about some of the new releases I'm listening to and loving, as is Mark. So we'll get to that a bit later on in this episode. So sit back, enjoy, and come on this journey with us as we explore the incredible Human League.
Been out all night, I needed a bite. I thought I'd put a record on. I reached for the one with the ultra-modern label and wondered where the light had gone. It had a futuristic cover lifted straight from Buck Rogers. The record was so black, it had to be a con. The auto changer switched as I filled my sandwich, and futuristic sounds wobbled off and on.
So the Human League are without doubt a legendary, pioneering English synth pop band. They were formed way back in 1977 in Sheffield, and the group signed to Virgin Records in '79. And as most people know, they later attained widespread commercial success with the release of Dare in 1981. But it's their formative years that Mark and I really want to focus on. I think before adopting the name The Human League, founder members Martin Ware and Ian Craig mastered the band. Briefly had two previous incarnations. I think Ware at this point decided he needed a singer rather than another keyboard player. The reason for this was twofold. Record companies have been reluctant to sign one of their early projects. I think it was called The Future, as they could not offer any marketable songs. They were very experimental at that time. And therefore a talented singer was required for any chance of commercial success. Also, the group only owned two synthesizers and couldn't afford a third. So Ware and Marsh searched for a vocalist, and ironically their first choice was Glenn Gregory, and we all know the story there, but he was unavailable at that time, but obviously became Heaven 17. So Ware then decided to invite an old school friend, and that happened to be Mr. Phil Oakley. Oakley was working as a hospital porter at the time on the Sheffield, and was known on the Sheffield social scene for his pretty eclectic style of dress sense. Ware thought he would be an ideal as a lead singer for The Future, as he already looked like a pop star, and he accepted the invitation, but early sessions were pretty awkward. Oakley had never sung in front of an audience before, could not play the keyboards, owned a saxophone which he could barely play. And listening to one of Ware and Marsh's demo though, Oakley was inspired to write the lyrics, which later become one of their classic singles, The Incredible Being Boiled. So with a new lineup, sound and vocalist, Ware decided the band needed a new name. It would also allow them to approach record companies from a very different angle. Ware suggested the Human League after a group in the science fiction board game Star Force Alpha Centauri. In the game, the Human League arose in 2415 AD and were a frontier-orientated society that desired more independence from Earth. Oakley, Wright and Marsh totally agreed with the new name, and in early 1978, The Future then became thankfully, the Human League. The band's live performances started to gain momentum, and they were asked to support the first Zillows, which then had future band member Joe Kelly in it, quite ironically. Susie and the Banshees as early as 78. In December 78, Bowie appeared in the audience and later declared to NME that he had seen the future of pop music. So yet again, like the LCD Sound System thing, where, you know, Bowie told James from the band to get the band back together, he saw this vision and pronounced the Human League as a very cool band, which they were. In 79, the Human League released their first EP, which I think was called The Dignity of Labour. It had like 4 experimental tracks. I don't think the EP barely charted. But labels began approaching the band in an attempt to lure them away from the Fast label. And in May 79, the band accepted an offer by Richard Branson for Virgin Records because of the label's early support. So that's kind of how it all started. So let's have a look at what came out of that work. Before, the Human League rebranded themselves as chart-storming synth-pop giants, female backing singers and all of that. Upon the release of their critically lauded Dare in 81, they released a pair of albums that were perhaps the most cold and dehumanised sort of form of synth-pop ever heard. It's almost so unfamiliar that some listeners may doubt the robotic beats of Being Boiled or the eerie dirge of The Path of Least Resistance could have ever came from the same band, who a few member changes and a stylistic rethink later produced enduring popular theathons like Don't You Want Me a couple of years following. This is the first album that came out, Reproduction, an amazing piece of electronic music history for me. I still remember the impact it had on me when I first put it on my turntable in my mum and dad's house in Romford, and it just stopped me in my tracks. It's just so dark. Throughout the record, there's a kind of a lack of hope for the world and an apathy for humankind strewn across the futuristic electro warbles and detached vocals and lyrics heard on virtually every track on this. Now, on paper, that probably sounds pretty unpleasant, but in reality, it's a well-formed brand of synth pop that doesn't give a shit about commercial approval, and for that's why I think it makes it so much more appealing and stronger to me. It has its own flavour, its own sense of style, and a clear idea of what it wants to be: cold, futuristic music deployed at the time using very cool, cutting-edge synths to create a danceable yet moody form of electronic music for those outside the realms of pop's rose-tinted glasses. Look, undoubtedly Dare is a masterpiece, and when it comes down to it, it's probably a better record than Reproduction in terms of commercial accessibility. But just because their debut didn't aim for the charts, in no way it means it's worthless. This is the music, while the music isn't as hooky or digestible as it would grow to be, it is definitely more interesting and thought-provoking. The opener, almost medieval, pounds along with its despair-filled beat and subtle background melodies to make one of the tensest tunes on the album. And despite the overall tone, one song did manage to find its way into the UK charts back in the day. Empire State Human. Pretty unbelievable it charted considering its odd chorus. Tall, tall, tall. I want to be tall, 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 as big as a wall, wall, wall. Really, this is all down to a matter of taste. People who mainly enjoy easy-to-stomach pop hooks, generic lyrics probably won't see the appeal, and would be better off sticking with Dare. But those with a, appetite for darker, more challenging music will find themselves a truly groundbreaking record with this, that they might actually prefer to the pop-leaning tendencies on the later Human League albums. It's best to approach these songs with an ear for curiosity. If you're looking for a simple pop fix like you get with Dare, you probably might be disappointed. But if you're looking to hear the Human League at their earliest and, for me, most inventive, creative, Reproduction might just delight more than you expect. Without doubt, one of the foundation albums of electronic music that we all love. If you haven't heard it or haven't played it for a while, do it. Amazing piece of work.
The circus of death is approaching.
Travelogue is the second full-length studio album released by the original Human League in May 1980. The last to feature the original lineup of founding members Ian Craig Marsh and Martin Weir, as after this the band would fragment and Ian Craig Marsh and Martin Weir would leave later in the year to form Heaven 17, and remaining members Phil Oakey and Philip Adrian Wright moved the Human League in a new direction with a new lineup to write and record Dare, which had huge commercial impact in 1981. Compared to Reproduction, already the band's synthesizer textures and Oakey's voice were starting to lean in a slightly new pop direction, but much of this album retained the dark austere tones of earlier synthesizer groups, but still avant-garde, still experimental with drum machines and with tape loops. Travelogue was produced by the band, along with Richard Manwaring, who went on to produce OMD's Architecture and Morality just a year later. It entered the UK charts at number 16, whereas Reproduction failed to even chart. 2 songs were released as singles from the album, a re-recorded version of the band's first single Being Boiled, this time as part of the Holiday 80 EP, and a cover of Mick Ronson's Only After Dark. Both were great songs, but neither were hits. Being Boiled did become a UK top 10 hit in 1982, but it was a stereo remix of the old single version, not the Holiday 80 Travelogue version. The Holiday 80 EP did contain another great song, not included on the album, Marianne. This song is worth checking out for the drum sound alone. A song that is normally lumped in with the Human League of this time is the non-album single Boys and Girls. Although the single sleeve showed a picture of the 2 girls, Suzanne Sully and Joanne Catherall, it was in fact produced purely by Phil Oakey and Philip Adrian Wright after the lineup split 4 months earlier. This is an important UK electronic album, and you need to check it out if you're unfamiliar. In fact, you need to check out both this, Travelogue, and its predecessor, Reproduction. Both albums went on to influence future generations of musicians.
Listen to the voice of Buddha saying stop your sericulture. Little people like your offspring born alive for some guy studying Buddha's watching Buddha's wedding. Run, I'd like to run away, only after dark. Won't you disappear into midnight with me? Why won't you come? Why won't you come? Why won't you come?
So, after just 2 albums, the original Human League split and became Heaven 17 in one corner and the Human League Mark II in the other. Hearing the music in this episode, you will know that the original Human League were much different to the later model, with the original Human League being a dark, experimental, avant-garde electronic outfit, and the later Human League that we all know and love being the commercial sounding synth-pop outfit. Sheffield in the late 70s, early 80s gave birth to an explosion of musical talent. Along with bands like Def Leppard, you had ABC, you had Pulp, you had Cabaret Voltaire, and of course you had the Human League and then Heaven 17. The next 2 albums for both bands were both groundbreaking, both for different reasons, which we'll cover no doubt in a later episode. Heaven 17 released the brilliant Penthouse and Pavement album, and the new Human League releasing the equally fantastic Dare album, and becoming, I guess, one of synth pop's first international mainstream superstars.
You're not the jealous kind.
So welcome to a very overdue hot stuff section. I'm so glad we're getting to do one because we haven't done one for ages, and as you know, I love talking about new albums and new artists or stuff that's coming out. I'm going to do two that are making my ears very happy right now, and Mark will do two also. My first recommendation is the beautiful The Quiet Drift by the very talented Holly Kenneth. Now, for those who know their stuff, they'll know that Holly is one half of the husband and wife duo that make the incredible Mint Julep, who again I've been waxing lyrical about since we started the whole Electronic Cafe. The bulk of this album can be easily described as shimmering, ambient, gorgeous music, and it's meant to just let you get lost in it. That's the only reason I think this album was made. It's beautiful. This is an immaculate record. It's lush, it's dreamy, everything you could want in a release of this kind of style. With all that said, this is very much an album for a niche audience. I don't think it's designed with a lot of catchy hooks or stuff like that. I get the feeling Holly has successfully crafted exactly what she set out to do. It's kind of a meditative piece of soothing melancholy, which will probably reach only a fairly small audience, but will be loved within that select few. For me personally, thoroughly recommended. I think this is definitely like a late night album, or sitting in your garden, background music, or having people around and this is playing in the background. Just, yeah, very, very cool. Holly, done a great job. Great album.
My first Hot Stuff album choice is Vivir en La Habana by Blondie, released earlier this month. In 2019, Blondie were invited to perform in Havana, Cuba as part of a cultural exchange through the Cuban Ministry of Culture. This 6-track mini LP captures some of the songs performed, including The Tide is High, Rapture, Long Time, Dreaming and Heart of Glass. Several of the songs feature amazing collaborations with some very gifted Cuban musicians. In all honesty, The Tide is High is probably not one of my favourite Blondie songs, but this extended live version lasting 8.5 minutes is phenomenal, mutating into Delight's Groove is in the Heart and becomes a dub jazz improv masterpiece. Rapture lasts nearly 10 minutes and is even better. Long Time from Pollinator, Heart of Glass and Dreaming are all perfect pieces of signature Blondie. The accompanying short film about this is currently doing the rounds throughout 2021 at various film festivals, and also this release looks particularly swish in its coloured vinyl format. Give it a listen if this ticks your boxes.
Does it take you a long time? Does it make you upset? Does it make you think everybody wants to be your friend? I can give you a heartbeat. I can give you a friend. I can make you think everybody.
And my second Hot Stuff recommendation for this particular episode is the incredible Blissland by the very talented Hattie Cook. This is the new LP from Brighton-born artist Hattie. It's her third album and it's her debut release for Castles in Space. It kind of really ups up her sound by managing the balance between very introspective and communal sort of viewpoints. It's an album that looks forward whilst acknowledging the creator's past, creating a work full of nostalgia that's also just feels vitally current. Initially conceived as a soundtrack album, during its creation, Blissland morphed into a beautiful set of personal songs brought out of anticipation, excitement and anxiety. For me, this ticks a ton of boxes. Lyrically, really well crafted. Sonically, so rewarding. I think it's right up there as a contender, trust me, for some of the best albums of 2021 when we do that episode at the end of the year. It's really that good. I thoroughly recommend this. It's a great album. Check it out. As I say, it's Blissland by the very clever and talented Hattie Cook.
second Hot Stuff choice is Keepsake, the debut album by Hatchie, released in 2019. Hatchie is the Australian artist Harriet Pilbeam, and this album follows her critically acclaimed breakout EP Sugar and Spice, released in 2018. The album is full of swoony, infectious melodies and harmonies and layers of hypnotic guitars, synth tones, sounds and textures. If you're a sucker for dreamy electronic Cocteau Twins style shoegaze, electro pop exploring everything from industrial new wave to dance pop, handling each with an understated elegance, you really do need to check this album out. It is chock full of gorgeous sonic excellence, and I guarantee you it will lift you and you will feel better having listened to it. And while you're at it, check out the 2018 EP Sugar and Spice, which is a collection of her early singles. A cracking couple of releases from Hatchie, and I look forward to what she has coming up next. She most definitely has been raiding her parents' record collection. It's a wonderful release. Go check it out. Enjoy.
So that's it for another episode of the Electronic Cafe. I hope you liked our exploration of the incredible, legendary Human League and, you know, the whole early part of their career, which for me, as I say, I think was the most creative part of their sort of career to date. Amazing journey and sounds and stuff they created. I hope you like the Hot Stuff section, and we are going to do a lot more of those because there's so much good new music Mark and I have to tell you about. If you want to keep in touch with some of the releases we're looking at on a more regular basis, please sign up for our Facebook page. You'll see us there, and all our friends that watch this show and are on that community just talking about cool stuff. So come and join us. We've got a really good load of new interviews coming up soon. Logan Sky will be coming up shortly. We've got some other big artists lined up, which we'll be able to tell you about soon, and a competition, as I mentioned in the last episode, where one lucky viewer will get to win a very cool, very limited 10-inch vinyl, which is, I think there's only 2,000 in the world. More of that to come in a future episode of the Electronic Cafe. But for the meantime, thanks for watching. Thanks for all your comments on our YouTube and Facebook pages. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll see you all soon on the very next episode. Take care.
Stay safe, take care, and thanks for watching the Electronic Cafe. We'll see you again soon. Bye bye.